Over the last 31 years, Sonic the Hedgehog and his friends have gone on many adventures that are told through many different stories. These stories are filled with moments with wide varieties of tones. Some of them are lighthearted, heartwarming, and colorful, while others are darker and much more serious. Today we're exploring the darker moments. I'm Keefe Nossi with One Up Binge, and these are Sonic the Hedgehog moments, dark to darkest. Now, we want to clarify a few things before getting started. For one, we're only covering the main series games. Anything that happens exclusively in TV shows, anime, comics, movies, or side games, such as the Olympics series, will not be talked about here. This includes things like Sonic's horrifying, original movie design, and the Metal Virus saga from the comics. This also means that nothing fan-made, no matter how official it may look, will be brought up here. So, no Sonic.exe and no fanfiction or artwork from the darkest depths of the internet. With all that in mind, let's get started. As one might expect, we'll start with the lighter dark moments and work our way into the shadows towards the darkest of them. Coming in as the lightest of the darkest, we have Sonic CD's Game Over music. Specifically, we're referring to the US version. The Japanese version is actually pretty upbeat, but the US version has distorted voices of people laughing, quite possibly at you, while this haunting music plays in the background. What especially makes this feel dark is its effect on people. Hearing this music at night or in a dark room, especially as a young kid, can really give people the shivers. Because this can be avoided as long as you don't get a game over, however, along with the fact that it doesn't affect the story nor have any visuals with it, we put this at the front end of our list. We're actually continuing to talk about the US version of Sonic CD with our next entry, which is arguably its most infamous secret sound test screen. Sonic CD's sound test options have a secret that's well known by now. Inputting certain numbers for each selection can lead the player to various images. You might get a cute image of Sonic or Tails smiling at you, or even get Sonic as an MC with Robotnik as a DJ. The remaining images, however, are interesting, to say the least. One of them is kind of cool, as it's basically a fusion of Sonic and Batman, for some reason. Maybe this was just subtle foretelling of Sonic's references to Batman in the second movie recently? Somehow they knew. The last image is what most people are likely to recognize. After putting in the correct code, a Japanese message pops up. At the same time, even creepier music than our previous entry is played, and repeated pictures of Sonic with a terrifying, human-like face are displayed. This is here on the list for the same reasons as our first entry, but on an even creepier scale. Moving on from Sonic CD, we're jumping ahead a few years in Sonic's timeline to talk about the semi-hero hero ending. From the game Shadow the Hedgehog, we'll talk a bit more about the game itself later on. For now though, we'll look at this specific ending. This game has multiple paths, each one with an ending where Shadow discovers who/what he is. In this instance, after finally finding the computer room with Vector, Shadow fights and defeats Black Doom. Upon doing so, Shadow declares that he is a research experiment gone deadly wrong that has caused so much destruction. He then goes on to say that he should never have been created. We've had other instances in the franchise where characters have been defeated or felt a certain negative way about themselves, but Shadow is basically claiming to be a mistake, wishing he didn't exist. If this were to be the most canonical ending, this entry would be higher. However, since it really isn't, along with how you technically never need to see this cutscene unless you want the last story, we'll be leaving this entry here. Considering a fictional character like Shadow, though, is feeling the same way here as many people have in real life, we felt this dark moment should have its own spot on the list. Moving away from Shadow for now, our next entry on our list is Eggman capturing animals and aliens to use as power sources. While Eggman doesn't do this nearly as much as he used to, the fact that he did at all is still pretty dark. Especially in the early titles, Sonic could defeat robots or open canisters by jumping on them, causing animals to pop out and run off. In Sonic Colors, Eggman would go on to do something very similar, but he would use the Wisp's energy as a power source instead. Capturing innocent creatures like this is dark enough, but proceeding to use them for his own personal gain makes it that much worse. Continuing on to the darker parts of the list, we'll look at the beginning of Sonic Forces. Getting fed up once again with Sonic always defeating him, Eggman makes another ultimate weapon to conquer the world. Confronting Sonic soon after, Sonic finds out many of his past foes have returned, in a sense. Sonic gets destroyed by them all in a matter of moments while Tails watches. Sonic quickly falls unconscious, and the game tells us that Eggman was able to take over the majority of the world soon after. It stays that way for a decent amount of time as well. Sonic's fast defeat and Eggman succeeding in conquering most of the known world is a solid selection for a dark entry on this list, we think. There were even implications made that Sonic was supposedly being tortured as well, though he appears just fine when we see him imprisoned later. The only reason this entry isn't higher is because we found out that Sonic is still alive and he practically breaks himself out of prison almost effortlessly after his chains got removed. Additionally, as expected, Eggman's control over the world is gradually lost the further the player gets into the game. So the beginning is dark, but it quickly starts to get reversed, preventing it from being listed lower on the list. On the subject of Sonic being tortured, the next spot on our list goes to Sonic's Werehog transformation. Regardless of how people might or might not feel about the mechanics of the Werehog, the transformation itself is still a bit dark. In the opening cutscene of Unleashed, Sonic and Eggman are facing off once again. Sonic even goes into his super form for this one. Soon after, though, Eggman traps Sonic and begins to torture him via electric shocks, draining the Emerald's power from him and the Emeralds themselves. Throughout this sequence, Sonic is screaming in pain. He gets vicious claws and his teeth become nasty fangs. At the same time as this is happening, Dark Gaia, a giant monster, is emerging from the planet's core as the planet literally splits apart. Sonic does adjust rather quickly even after falling down to the planet, but the pain he endured while the world was being split into pieces at the same time really solidify its classification of being a dark moment. You can't have a dark Sonic moments list without mentioning the Sonic character with dark in their name. In this instance, we'll look at the time that Mephiles the Dark killed Sonic. If you thought Sonic being electrified was dark, how about Sonic being impaled on screen? Sonic and Elise are walking along when they're blinded by the glow of an emerald. Mephiles then emerges from the ground and literally stabs Sonic in the back. While we don't see the initial impact, we hear it, and then it zooms out to show that the energy beam is going right through Sonic. For a short while, we're under the impression that Sonic has actually died. This alone would make it go right near the top of the list, but then Elise pulls a Miracle Max and Sonic is apparently only mostly dead. After collecting the Chaos Emeralds, Elise restores Sonic in his super form in a very, shall we say, controversial way. Regardless, the dark visual of Sonic getting stabbed and showing the immediate aftermath on screen really created a shock value for many. After all, this is one of the closest times we've ever seen a villain come to putting Sonic down for good. This comes with the added fact that Mephiles almost did it in his first and only appearance. Who knows what Mephiles could do if he were to ever come back in another game. Returning back to the Shadow the Hedgehog game, our next entry is the whole game, in general. The game was intended to be a darker than average Sonic game, even originally aiming for a T rating before the E10 Plus rating was created. And boy does it deliver on that! Aliens are invading and destroying the planet, and it's primarily up to Shadow to put an end to it. Dark moments happen left and right, including soldiers getting shot, sometimes by Shadow. Shadow possibly killing Eggman with a chop to the head, Shadow fighting Sonic with the latter weakly questioning why afterwards, and the alternate ending we mentioned earlier. What keeps this entry from going any further on this list is the fact that these elements are mostly optional. In most levels, you can choose to do bad, good, or just be neutral. Which path you choose will affect the ending. The only way these dark actions and even some events become mandatory is when you want to access the final act in the game. Otherwise, this would be a much darker entry overall. Dark moments in life can often lead to or be caused by chaos, and chaos, wiping out the Echidnas, is no exception. In the first Sonic adventure, we come across a being known as Chaos. It turns out that many years ago, Chaos was the protector of the Master Emerald. After Pachacamac became the chief of the Knuckles clan, the clan itself became much more arrogant, war-driven, and selfish. At one point, they decided to raid the altar of the Master Emerald. Despite the pleas made by Tikal, a female Echidna in the tribe, to stop before it was too late, they went through with their actions. This led to them practically trampling Tikal and many of the Chao in that area. This caused Chaos to emerge, filled with anger. Chaos proceeded to wipe out most of the Echidnas very quickly. To keep things from getting any worse, Tikal sacrificed herself to seal Chaos and herself inside the Master Emerald. What keeps this entry from going further down the list is what leads to these events. Pretty much all of the dark moments from this tragedy could have been avoided if the tribe hadn't attacked for their own self-interests. They honestly had it coming with the way they were acting. If it was something they didn't directly cause themselves, this would have been even darker. We're almost up to our top 3 dark moments, but the entry that's just shy of it is E102 Gamma's Sacrifice. Also taking place during the events of Sonic Adventure, Gamma was an Eggman robot that you could actually play as, which was a rarity up to that point. This was still at a time in the franchise where Eggman would use animals to help power his machines. Eventually, Gamma catches on to this and turns on Eggman after befriending Amy. He then proceeds to go on his own mission to free the animals trapped in his robot brethren. The final robot he confronts to do this with is an upgraded version of Beta. Upon defeating him, Beta gets one last good shot in before being destroyed, freeing the bird. This fight among brothers, even though they are robots, is still relatively dark, and it's made even more so by what happens afterwards. Gamma, realizing he also had an animal inside of him, decided to give up his own life to free the bird instead of getting repaired. An act like this, while noble, is still a dark moment due in large part to everything that happened in Gamma's story arc up to that point. What makes Chaos's attack that we mentioned earlier worse is that it wasn't the end of its destruction, as it would eventually destroy Station Square. In the present day, Chaos emerges from the Master Emerald and continues its attack. This time, Eggman is there, giving it Chaos Emeralds to increase its strength, not knowing Chaos would eventually turn against him. Upon reaching its perfect form, Chaos goes on a rampage and quickly destroys the district with buildings damaged and the area entirely flooded. What adds to the dark element of this moment is the cutscene beforehand. We see that the district is well populated, but Chaos destroys it almost instantly. We do somehow see the citizens all gone within seconds before it gets too bad, but if you think about it, there's a really good chance many people would have died in just those few seconds. Making it even worse is the fact that, unlike the Echidna tribe, these citizens were innocent bystanders doing nothing to bother Chaos nor anyone else, really. In terms of the games, we don't really have a clear answer as to what happens to Station Square after this. If we knew for sure that the city was fully repaired, or the effects of Chaos's attacks were ultimately reversed, this moment might not have come across as nearly as dark, but as it stands, it receives the Bronze Medal of Darkness. Approaching the finish line now, we have our Silver Medal entry, Professor Gerald's execution. This dark moment is a tragedy because of how Gerald started out and what eventually happened to him. For most of his career, he had dedicated his life's work to finding ways to save or benefit mankind. While he was resistant at first, he eventually agreed to take part in a project to help humans try and achieve immortality. He mainly agreed because he figured that during his research, he might be able to find a way to cure someone's fatal disease. After some time had passed and much of Gerald's work was nearly completed, the government started to see much of his work as potentially dangerous and went to shut it all down. This is especially so after learning of his contact with the Black Arms. Several bad accidents/occurrences began taking place, one of which we'll be discussing in a moment, and Gerald eventually snapped, wanting to take revenge for someone he lost that had been near and dear to him. He then turned the space colony Ark into a weapon in and of itself, making so that it would crash into the Earth after the 7 Chaos Emeralds were put into the Eclipse Cannon. Many years after his death, the main cast of Adventures 2 stumbles onto a video of Gerald right before his execution. He completely spells out his plan and how Earth won't have much time before it's destroyed once his plan is in motion. When he was finished talking, the video stops, but it's heavily implied that Gerald was executed very soon after. Death is already a dark element, but an actual execution, especially to a man who started out wanting nothing more than to do good things for the human race, amplifies the dark aspects of his story in general. Our Gold Medal of Dark is actually tied together with our Silver Medal entry, in that one leads directly into the other. Taking the top spot is the death of Maria Robotnik. As we mentioned earlier, Gerald takes on the project of seeking immortality for humans in order to find a cure for someone's fatal disease. That person specifically is Maria. Because of this disease, Maria is already on her way out in a sense. However, the way she actually dies is much worse. Upon considering Gerald's work to be dangerous, the government decides to eliminate anyone and anything connected to Gerald's work. This includes him, Shadow, and, of course, Maria. Gerald tries to help Shadow and Maria escape, and at first he believes they do. What he doesn't know is that only one of them would make it out alive. Sonic Adventure 2 and Shadow the Hedgehog, the game, give us different elements of what happens in these moments. Adventure 2 shows us that it's thanks to Maria that Shadow's able to escape, but it doesn't really show Maria's fate afterwards. That's where Shadow's solo game comes in. Cutscenes in this game reenact this set of events, all while adding in one important detail. We see a gun, G-U-N, soldier with a gun aimed at them, followed by a gunshot being heard. While we don't actually see the bullet hit Maria, we still get images of her falling immediately after, along with an animated cutscene of her falling to the ground right before Shadow gets sent away. This same image would go on to be used for her card in Sonic Rivals. Even crazier is the fact that when the game was originally aiming for a T rating by the ESRB, there was unused footage of Maria in motion falling back immediately after the shot. This moment was also originally seen in Shadow's eyes in another scene. Long story short, she helps Shadow escape but doesn't make it out alive herself. It's the discovery of this that ultimately leads to Gerald going insane and wanting to destroy the world and all of its inhabitants. Maria was a completely innocent girl who just happened to be related to the man who the government deemed as dangerous, and they shot and killed her as a result. By the time Gerald is executed, he at least starts to do legitimately bad things, but Maria never did. Putting all these elements together, along with the fact that this one moment ultimately leads to multiple other dark moments in the franchise, you get what could be considered as one of, if not the, darkest moment in the franchise. But what do you think? Do you think anything on this list should have been arranged differently? Are there any dark moments that we missed? Let us know. And if you need a one-up, make sure to hit that notification bell and binge more of our Sonic the Hedgehog videos. Thanks for watching.